All right, hello guys, and welcome to a very special episode of the City Guys podcast. It's our first post-match game episode, so we're very excited about that. We're going to be talking about the last week's matchup against the Colorado Rapids. We're going to go into a match recap, do some match analysis, and then talk about our predictions for next week's matchup against San Diego.
Yeah.
So let's just get into this one. Varun, what was your overall take on everything around this game? Because we both went to this game.
Oh, very cold. Very cold game. One thing that I just wanted to kind of touch on here. You know those I'll put a picture of them on the screen, but you know those the season opener things that we got like when we went to the
Yeah,
stadium. I really like those. Those are crazy.
no, I did too.
I love those. But yeah, very cold game.
Mhm.
Do you want to talk about the tifo? We did have a crazy tifo. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah. So overall, like my experience, I was so excited to be back at City Park, or I guess Energizer Park, as it's now called. But everything with the pregame and like leading up to the game, it was very cold, but like it wasn't like miserably cold. It was just kind of like annoying.
Yeah.
But I felt like everything leading up to the game, the pennant that they gave out was super cool. You could tell they put in a lot of effort with it, and it just was like very stylistically like
Hmm.
cool looking.
Yeah.
And instead, usually they at the opening game they give out like a little sign that you hold up as part of like the tifo, and it's got like everybody in the crowd, and it makes like some sort of shape or some sort of symbol or whatever, which was really cool, and I really liked that they did that the past few years. This year they decided not to do it. I think because it was Energizer with the new sponsor, they wanted to do something like electronic or like battery related. So they gave everyone like these little tiny little light powered bracelets
Yeah.
that would light up at certain times, and it just made one of the coolest pregame things I've ever seen. Even people who it got posted on Instagram, and even people who weren't like City fans or like LS fans were even commenting saying how cool it was. So that was really cool to see St.
Yeah.
Louis City featured in such a good light like that. No pun
It
intended.
it really reminded me of
Um,
that of our first playoff game. What like
mm,
2 years ago against Sporting KC when they completely
yeah.
turned off the lights. They had the light show. This was probably one of my most enjoyable matches that I've been to.
Mm,
And I've been to a lot of games here, but this was probably one of the most enjoyable ones to go to. That light show was crazy. The pennant was really sick. And then the
mm,
tifo, Fletcher, it was Star Wars themed.
yeah.
Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I really like the tifo as well. The tifos they've been doing. Maybe one day we'll do like a tifo tier list that we've had.
Ooh,
I think that'd be kind of a good idea. But
yeah,
just thinking back to the opening day ones, that first year they did "Meet Me at the Park"
yep,
one, which is kind of cool because it's like a famous St. Louis movie. I really like that tifo. It was simple and clean. And then the signs made out. Believe it was the Missouri River.
yeah,
Um, And then last year they did like a Mortal Kombat, like a round two fight kind of one, which was cool. But I didn't like that one as much. But this one was very awesome.
hmm,
It incorporated the light show into the tifo as well. The
yeah,
lights were still off, and like they were lighting up, and it was Star Wars themed.
yeah.
It was supposed to be like
Like the
the
galaxy?
because it's the third season. Yeah, it was like the galaxy, but it
Yeah,
was also like the end of the trilogy, if you will, being it's the third season. So,
yeah.
uh,
I recorded the whole
and it does
thing,
kind of,
so yeah.
yeah, it does kind of fit with the St. Louis City like arc. The first year was like a New Hope, you know, going above expectations. Last year was like The Empire Strikes Back,
Return of the
and this is
Jedi.
like Return of the Jedi. Yeah. But Klaus is the Jedi here. He's a Luke Skywalker, gonna save the team.
Yeah.
Um, so enough with the pregame talk, though. I think we got to get into the match recap here.
Jump straight in.
So the game ended 0-0. So even with all the pregame excitement, that was probably the most exciting thing that happened all night because the game
Yeah.
itself was rather boring. I'm not gonna lie. Just going over some of the highlights from the match. In the 17th minute, there was a long throw-in that I believe from Totland that led to Simon Becker getting a shot on goal from very close range that was saved by Stefan. And this was honestly the best chance of the night. It had a .58 xG. Um, Becker, it was a great save, and it was from very close range. But you got to score that when you get an opportunity like that, where it's just you and the goalie on goal from that close. Like you got to score. I know it's a tough decision, and he ended up just shooting it right at the goalie. But like
Yeah.
you don't get many chances like that, and as you can see, that was the best chance of the entire game, and it kind of got wasted. 3 minutes later, Leuven had a free kick right outside the box. It actually hit the left post and got redirected to Simon Becker, who scored, but he was ultimately offside. So that goal ended up coming back. The 36-minute Cole Bassett of Colorado got played through on goal after doing a little give and go with Rafael Navarro, their striker. But thankfully, Kyle Hebert came to the rescue, made a last-ditch challenge, kind of redirected the ball up in the air, and Roman Berkey got up and grabbed it. That was the best chance for Colorado all night. It only had a .15 xG, so that just tells you how poor of a offensive performance they had. And then right before halftime, in the 45th minute, Josh Yarrow had a little spin move in the midfield when he was kind of trying to advance the ball. He then played a great ball forward for Akil Watts, who crossed it to Simon Becker, who's making a run on goal. The ball was a little bit too high from where Becker wanted it. He wanted it at his feet, and it was ultimately near his head, and he ended up heading the ball over the goal. Yeah, I can, again, from Becker, he had the two best chances of the night for St. Louis City. This was .41 xG, so it was a little bit less than that first one, but I don't know. You got two really, really good chances on net, and you can't even. I mean, the second one you shoot over the bar. The first one you shot right at the goalie. He ended up getting man of the match, I believe, for this game, which I did not agree with because I actually thought he did have. On one hand, he did have the two best chances tonight, but he kind of bottled both of them. He should have scored at least one of those, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, coming out of halftime, the 49th minute, Leuven had a corner. The ball got played outside the box to Marcel Hartl, who sent in another beautiful cross to Simon Becker, who got a header on net, which was saved. It wasn't like a great opportunity, so I won't. And it was a pretty good shot. Like he almost scored it from a pretty mid opportunity. So I won't fault him for that. But
he made Zach Steffen work for that shot. To say
right, it was a very like slow moving header that was able to
it was
go
well
in.
placed. It was well placed for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the 66th minute, Leuven there was a really nice passing sequence. Leuven to Hartl to Totlin, very quick, long passes through the midfield that took advantage of a lot of open space that Colorado left. Because around this time, we kept trying to go through the flanks and cross the ball into the box. And I think Colorado adjusted to that by dropping their back line in deeper or dropping their midfielders in deeper whenever we try to do that. So this was kind of a nice breakup from that. And anyway, this play led to Totlin playing in Klaus, who very nearly scored with a crazy backheel goal. But it was ultimately saved by Steffen. And then right after this, Morales was subbed in for Leuven, got his first ever appearance with St. Louis City. 74th minute, Hartl played a ground pass for Totlin, who was with open space at the edge of the box. His shot was blocked. He got the rebound, shot it again, and it went over the crossbar. Honestly, one of the better chances that he had all night. Marcel Hartl, that he played in for Totlin, and this was really like Totlin's only chance that he had to score. And I thought Totlin actually had a very solid game for what he was asked to do in this new system, which I guess we'll talk about later. 77th minute, Klaus had a long shot that went just wide. Again, I thought Klaus actually had a pretty decent game too, without scoring.
Yeah,
he had a couple. He turned a lot of he created a lot of chances out of nothing. It felt like he also contributed a lot in the passing game.
Yeah, I don't think as much service really just hurt him.
Mm-hmm.
But just go on. We can talk about that later.
In the 78th minute, there was some subs for Colorado. Akil Watts got a yellow card in the 80th minute. 81st, Toyshirt came on to replace Becker, and Conrad Vollum, came on to replace Horn. That was his first appearance with St. Louis City. So two players that honestly kind of expected both of these guys to start in this game. I know Toyshirt's kind of been dealing with an injury and with his green card situation, but I was very surprised not to see Conrad Vollum start, but he did get subbed here very late. Um, 88th minute, Colorado made a change. 90th minute corner kick from Hartle leads to a Klaus header, which is saved by Stefan. That was really the final shot on goal St. Louis City had. And then in the 94th minute, there's a long throw in from Totland, which led to a scramble in front of the net. Toyshirt got a shot off, but it was blocked and cleared by Colorado, and that was the end of the game. So it ended in a 0-0 draw, even though St. Louis City had a vast majority of the chances. It felt like
Yeah.
had a few really good chances, but weren't able to score on any of them.
Yeah, let's go over the match stats here. Just quickly, our total xG was 2.01. To Colorado's point 0.2. It
Mm-hmm.
just kind of shows how bad of a team Colorado was in this game. We had 17 total shots. Colorado had 2. Um,
Yeah.
we had, and then 5 of those shots were on net for us. Colorado had 0. Um, Possession wise, it was kind of even. We had 55%. They had 45%. And then it was our 7 fouls to their 14. We were the better team, of course, in this game. Zach Steffen was kind of saving everything. To be honest, those shots were not the best, but he still was saving them. Our
Mm-hmm.
highest rated players in this game were Henry Kessler, who's our center back, with a 7.8 match rating. Marcel Hartel with a 7.6. Lewin with a 7.4. I completely agree with Kessler being the highest out of all of them. I do think that he really carried our back line. But let's go to the match analysis here. What did you think of the first starting 11?
Yeah. So when this first came out, I was honestly not a fan. It's not
No, yeah.
necessarily what I expected. They did roll out with like a 3-5-2 formation.
Yep.
They had the three center backs. They had two wing backs and two central midfielders. Then you had Hardo playing like a cam role, and then you had Klaus and Becker playing the two forward roles. So it's kind of an interesting formation. I was expecting more of like a 3-4-3,
Hmm.
but a 3-5-2 was fine. I think on paper I didn't have a problem with that. They rolled out Hebert, Kessler, and Uraro as the center backs, and I don't. It's tough to say because you don't know what like the status or health of the players are
Yeah.
necessarily, especially for this first game of the year. So it very much could be just like Baumgartel or Nilsson weren't fully fit or ready to play in this game yet. But I don't know. I thought it was very
It was, yeah.
surprising to say the least to see those three. I mean, Kessler we knew was going to be a starter,
Yep.
but Yarrow and Hebert starting at center
That
back.
was surprising.
Yeah, very surprising, and we'll talk about a
Yeah.
little bit about that in a second here. But then we had Totland and Horn as kind of the two wingbacks. He had Totland on the right side, Horn on the left side. Uh, I mean, we expected Totland was a given. We knew he was going to be in the lineup for sure. Horn, we knew was going to be in the lineup. We didn't know if he was going to be playing more of like a left center back role,
Mhm.
which is what I personally kind of
Yeah.
hoped for and
Yeah.
envisioned for him. He ended up playing a wing back role, which I do think was a mistake overall, because I don't really think Horn had the attacking potential that. First off, I think Totland is a much better player going forward than Horn is, and I think that led to almost everything going through his side of the pitch,
Hmm.
which really limited our chances and like
Yeah.
kind of the creativity in the
Yeah.
match because everything had to go through his side. Um, but yeah, that's why I really thought Conrad Vollum would get the start here because I feel like he would offer a little bit more going forward. And again, we'll talk about that a little bit in a second here. And then you had Watts and Leuven as the two central midfielders. Obviously, Leuven starting, but Watts, we didn't know he was probably going to start just because there's so many injuries in that central midfield role right now. So it's not that big of a surprise. Um, but personally, I think he played okay, but he didn't play well enough, in my opinion, for him to earn a spot in that midfield going forward. And I think overall, the biggest takeaway is that they had what 6 defensive players on the field starting here. I mean, you had 3 center backs,
And then,
2 fullbacks,
yeah.
and all right, 3 fullbacks actually. Um, so I don't
Yeah.
really understand. I mean, I get it from Melberg. Maybe the strategy was okay, this team was really bad defensively last year, so I'm going to shore up the defense, make sure we don't concede, and then hopefully we can get lucky, score like an MLS type goal, or score like a lucky counterattack break
Yeah.
that we got, in which it almost worked.
Hmm.
But overall, I feel like this lineup is just way too defensive, and kind of stagnant in the attack a little bit because you had so many defensive players on the field that couldn't contribute in the attack.
Yeah. Let's move on to the defense at least, since we're talking about it. Let's talk about the positives here. In our opinion, I think Kessler. We think Kessler should have been the man of the match for sure. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think you agree with that too. But yeah, he looked strong, confident, and he was stopping anything and everything. This guy was a brick wall in the back line. If he wasn't there, Colorado probably would have scored. If that's just my
Yeah.
take. Um, Hebert played decent. He had a really good defensive play to save a goal, which we talked about earlier, where he kind of just stopped the shot. Berkey got up and got it. But he did have a couple horrible turnovers at the end, where he just kind of, I think there was like a winger at the top of the box, and he kind of tried to clear
Mm-hmm.
it, and it went straight to the winger's feet. I mean, nothing,
Mm-hmm.
nothing came out of it, of course, because Colorado was that bad. But, uh, but I don't think he really offered much going forward. But and then Yarrow, let's talk about third center back Yarrow. He seemed decent. He had a couple good chances here and there. He did have that really good highlight ball that went to Watts right before halftime ended, and he played very good, very aggressive. And he also kind of pushed up with the midfield, um, which that kind of broke our formation. So maybe we don't want to see that as much.
Mm-hmm.
And Giannis Horn, as you said earlier, he just kind of really didn't do much offensively. What I would
Yeah.
have personally liked to see is if if Nielsen isn't, if he's injured or he's not like up to start, I think Giannis Horn could settle in that left center back role that Kyle Hebert was playing in, where I think that the back three should be Giannis Horn at the left center back, Kessler at the middle, and then Baumgartel, assuming Baumgartel
Mm-hmm.
is the player that we bought him to be. If Baumgartel is good enough, I think that that should be the back three. So maybe move Horn off of the attack or off the wing back role. But yeah, I don't know what would you have to say to that.
No, I agree with pretty much everything you said there. Um, I thought one of the things that was very frustrating to see from Yarrow, and something we've seen his entire time he's been at St. Louis City, is that he's a very aggressive
Yeah,
um, ball playing center back. Like, he always tries to play the ball, no matter the scenario. It seems like he um, doesn't like, not that he doesn't want to stay in formation, but it seems like his natural instinct is to chase the ball. Very similar to actually Tim Parker. But I feel like Tim Parker was more athletic and had better instincts, so he kind of made up for it a little bit then. But even from Parker, I didn't really like that. And I think Yarrow is kind of just a worse version of Tim Parker, in my opinion, which is why I was not super pleased to see him start. No disrespect. I think he's a great guy, but um, Josh Hart had a few good plays tonight. He had actually a couple of really good balls. And I think his all the center backs, he's the one that had the best, or he had the most ability to actually move the ball forward and
yeah,
try and create something. So I do appreciate that from him. But overall, I just think that Yarrow and Kyle Hebert, just, I like them both as players and as depth pieces. But I think when they're starting in your lineup week one, it's a little cause for concern,
yeah.
in my opinion. So
Um,
I would like to see some changes there going forward.
the one thing that I disagreed with on is the Akil Watts situation. I personally really did like what I saw from Akil Watts. I saw that.
Mm-hmm.
What was I gonna say? I really liked that he was pressing up. I don't know what role was he playing. Was he kind of playing? He was kind of playing as like the left mid, kind of. It was kind of like the weird like. He was kind of like everywhere, to be honest, on the field. He's like a defensive mid
Mm-hmm.
everywhere, right mid everywhere. Um, But I really did like Akil Watts, and I do think that since Jaden Reed is currently out with injury, I think he's supposed to come back in like March. But I think that if if Melberg doesn't want to play Wallum in that wingback role, I think Akil Watts would be perfect because we have seen him kind of play in that left back, kind of wingback
Mhm.
role last year with Hackworth. Um, when Jaden Reed before Jaden Reed kind of came onto the scene. Um, but I really did like Watts. I like Watts as a player. Um, but it would be kind of interesting to see him kind of play as a fullback in this offense or in this in on this Melberg team.
Mhm.
And then kind of move Wallum to a more central role because we do know that Wallum can kind of play everywhere. Like this guy can play multiple positions. So it's kind of interesting to see in the future what happens with Akil Watts and Conrad Wallum regarding that position. Um, but yeah, do you want to talk about the attack now?
Yeah. So the attack was able to create a lot of chances in this game. They weren't able to score ultimately, but I actually thought they played okay. Um, Becker had the two best chances of the night, like we said earlier, but he wasn't able to finish either. A little bit of a disappointing performance from him. I'm not gonna lie; he should have scored at least one of those,
Yeah,
if not both, to be honest.
yeah,
But I still like Becker a lot. I was a
hmm,
little bit surprised to see him in the starting lineup.
yeah,
I didn't expect them to roll out with two strikers, but I think it kind of worked. Like it wasn't a terrible setup. Um, I just think with a little bit of better execution and a little bit better finishing, it could have been a lot more successful. But all right, so I want to talk about Klaus a little bit here. Um, he he didn't really show up on the stat sheet a lot, and it didn't really show up that he had that great of a game. But I actually thought he had a solid performance. He made the best of what he got, even though he didn't get a lot of service in the box. But I thought one of his better plays of the night was when he carried the ball up through the midfield, and he ended up making a really good pass to Hartle. I don't remember exactly when this was in the game. I believe it was the first half, but he really took advantage of the open space that the defense was giving him and created. He showed a lot of skill on the ball, and one of the things about Klaus is I've noticed that he has a lot of skill
mhm,
and he has really great vision in passing. Like we kind of assumed that he was going to be like this target man
yeah,
striker, kind of like this Holland type. You get the ball to him in the box and he's
yeah.
going to score. But I really honestly don't know if that's like the best fit or like profile for him, because I think he honestly could fit in as more of like a deep line forward role because he's shown that he clearly has really great vision and skill on the ball. I mean, he's a Brazilian. He's got that flair. We saw even like the back heel that he tried to score.
Yeah,
I mean, he does a lot of things that most of the players, at least in the MLS, can't even do. So I thought it was interesting, and I wanted to highlight that one play where he brought the ball up because you don't really see that from Klaus very often because he's not asked to do that very much. He's asked to stay at the top, create runs, kind of hold the ball up, whatever. But I don't know. I think potentially that could be something that they try and fit Klaus into, especially if he's struggling to score goals at the top like he did last year. Trying to fit him into more like I envision him more like a Harry Kane type striker, where he's also a very good playmaker and contributes to the goal scoring in that way. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to mention about Klaus. I actually thought he had a very solid game. I thought he was honestly better than Becker, if I'm going to be completely honest. Um,
y-
but it's going to be very interesting going forward to see if they stick with the two strikers or if that was just because Toy Shirt's coming back from an injury
yeah.
or what the plan is moving forward.
I really like that you brought up his passing. My favorite like Klaus play of the game was I think you just touched on that earlier, but it was that he had a Travella pass, which is something I've
Mm-hmm.
not never seen Klaus do. I don't know if it was intentional, but he played a crazy good ball. I think it was to Hartel. It was either Hartel or
Mm-hmm.
Betcher, but he had a crazy Travella pass that went around one of the defenders and it landed straight into our player's feet. Which, yeah, it kind of basically just supports everything that you just said about Klaus being more than just that target man striker. So I personally did really like what I saw from Klaus. Um, But yeah, I really do think that he has what it takes to be our goal scorer. Like if you know what I mean. Like I really do think that Klaus
Hmm.
can get back to that 2023 levels that we saw him in our inaugural season. So yeah, um, let's move on to our substitutes. We subbed on Alfredo Morales, who came on for Lewin. He looked extremely confident and skilled with the ball. Um, it completely shows his MLS experience. This guy's been in the MLS for years. I think he last played on New York City FC.
Yeah,
But yeah, it completely just shows how dominant of a player he can be, and he can control the midfield. And his balls that he was playing over the top were pretty good balls, to be honest. Melberg actually stated in his post game conference that Morales only played limited minutes due to coming back from injury, so he could possibly have a bigger role in the future with this team. I don't know. Did you have anything else to add about him?
yeah. I thought that tidbit that Melberg put in his or his post game press conference was incredibly interesting because I thought when Morales was kind of a late addition to the team,
Yeah.
and when they picked him up, everyone kind of just assumed that it was going to be like a depth piece, and he wasn't really going to see too much playing time. But he was the first sub that we made tonight, which I was not expecting. And then Melberg saying that in the post game that he only played limited minutes because he's coming back from an injury makes me think that he has a much bigger role going forward. I think if he was healthy, he probably would have started
Hmm.
instead of Akil Watts,
Yeah.
which is very interesting that they might look to Morales more often because I actually thought he played
He played really
really,
well.
really
He played
well.
really well.
Um, Usually we see when Lubin gets subbed off, Lubin's like the heartbeat and soul of the midfield, and when he gets subbed off, the quality and the chances just drop off a cliff.
Yeah.
But Morales came on and he immediately played two really good balls. That didn't really result in anything, but that wasn't on him.
Hmm.
And I thought he's not like the most skillful or like speedy or most athletic player at his age at this point, but he has so much experience. Like he's not going to make a wrong decision, and he just knows exactly where to be and exactly what play to make. So I really liked what I saw from him. I think he might be one of the sleeper players to have like a really big impact on this team this year.
Yeah, considering that we
Um,
signed him, what, like 2 days before, 2 days
mhm,
before the first games, so it's
yeah.
only going to get better from him.
Mhm.
Do you want to talk about Conrad Wallum? I know you really liked him a lot.
Yeah, I thought Conrad Volleb, he was one of the players expected to start in this game just based on what I saw in preseason. Um, and it's hard to find information on these preseason games, which is very weird. Like the MLS needs to do better about that. But from what I saw, he played really well. I know he scored in one of the games, um, and he came on for Horn late in the game, and I thought he changed the outlook of the game a lot. As finally, when he came on, we were able to move the ball up that side of the field very effectively, um, which opened up a lot of opportunities that we didn't have um, at the start of the game. And I think he's an incredibly skilled player. He's 24 years old from Norway. He's willing to take risks and chances with the ball, for better or for worse. I think we saw very late in the game he had the ball in our own box, and he was trying to get it away from a Colorado defender, and he hit like this weird like behind the back skill move, almost like a FIFA animation. It was like really weird and like extremely risky and dangerous, but he ended up pulling it off. So you're like, okay, that was stupid, but like also that was really cool because you just finesse this dude. So I thought it was very interesting from him, and you could tell whenever he had the ball, he didn't play like perfectly by any means. He had a couple turnovers, especially when he first came on, but you could tell that he is like he is very talented and skilled. Like he's probably like one of the most talented players. He was probably one of the most talented players on the pitch last night, in
Oh
my
yeah, oh
opinion,
yeah.
just based on his skill alone. So I thought it was very weird that he didn't start. Maybe it's you never know if he's coming back from an injury or something or whatever. But I would expect him hopefully to have a bigger role going forward. Because like I said, I thought the outlook of the game changed when he came on for the better. And then I want to talk about Toy Shirt, who came on at the very end. He didn't really do too much. He had a shot. He had the very final shot of the game, which got blocked and cleared. Uh, but Toy Shirt, was coming back from an injury. He also had like his green card stuff to deal with. Like, I know he had to go back to Germany right before the season started. Um, but Toy Shirt is obviously going to have a big role in this team going forward. He was a very expensive signing for the team last season. He played a lot last season. He was very good. You'd expect him to be a very consistent starter for this team. Probably in lieu of Becker, I would assume, is the guy that gets moved out to the bench. But we don't really know, to be completely honest, what this new manager likes or what he's going to do with the attack. So, yeah, all I know is that Toy Shirt is going to have a role in this team some way or another.
Yeah. Um, let's go on to like some changes that we possibly want to see. Um, I know that Durkin was playing, or he didn't even touch the field. I know that Durkin did have an injury that he was nursing earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then JGR is out until March, I think.
Yeah.
JGR being one of our younger players, kind of prospect for the future from Australia. So JGR and Jaden Reed, I think, are the two players that we have on the roster that are currently injured, and then Alm. But possibly have Durkin or JGR in the midfield over Watts. What did you think? Or would you want to see a Alfredo Morales kind of start in that role?
I would probably prefer Durkin or JGR just because I feel like Morales offers a lot of the same. He has a very similar skill set to Edward Leuven. So I feel like if you play both of those guys, it wouldn't really maximize the potential of the midfield.
Uh huh.
I think it would be better with Durkin or JGR, who are both CDMs, especially with a back three. And that way you could play a Vollum or a Jaden Reed at left wing back and allow them the
To go.
freedom to
Yeah.
to move forward. Yeah, when you have a center back there to cover for him,
Yeah.
or CDM to
Yeah.
cover for him.
And then yeah, we just touched on Wallam, but earlier on we talked about our center back. The center backs that started. Um, and shifting Horn to that left center back role, I think would be really good because he is a left-footed
Mm-hmm.
player, of course. So seeing him kind of get pushed back from attack to more of a defensive role would probably do him good, and then shift a more attacking-minded player onto that wing-back role. Um, I know you. I think yeah, you agree with that, right?
I do agree. And I mean Nilsson or not Nilsson. Horn can play that center back role, even though we've played him at left back pretty much the entire time he's been here. But I think he's very good defensively. Like I don't
Yeah.
worry about him having to cover more ground
Mhm.
as a center back. So I think honestly, it would be better to see him in that role rather than playing the wing back role because I don't think he has the skill set to play that offensive side.
Yeah. Um, and then yeah, Nielsen and Baumgartel, I think, is something that we would rather see over Yarrow and Hebert,
Mm-hmm.
which is also possible. So we'd have to kind of adjust with that with the Giannis Horn situation on that. But yeah, I don't know. I think Nielsen is still kind of here and there with that injury. I think they're still evaluating him, so that might be the possibility and why he didn't start. And then Baumgartel, I guess I don't know. They just haven't like kind of integrated him. I don't know what the issue is with that. Um, so if Baumgartel, I think we know we're getting with Nielsen basically the same old Nielsen that
Mm-hmm.
we've had for the past 2 years or about a year actually. But Baumgartel, if he's not the player that we think he is, we can probably fit Horn into that back line. Anyways, I mean Baumgartel is kind of like a low risk type of player because we basically paid nothing for him, no transfer fee. It was just a free transfer. Um,
Yeah,
him being a free agent. So I don't know. I really do expect that Baumgartel is good though. So because he was good with in Germany with Schalke. So I think we do have a really solid back line here.
yeah, and I mean, like you said, it's kind of just unknown. And I think one of the problems with playing those two guys with three center backs is they're very slow players, especially Nilsson, as to where I don't know if he necessarily fit in super well with the back three, but um, it's going to be interesting to see going forward what Melbury decides to do and what
Yeah.
players he wants in that back three.
Yeah, I know. I also know. Moving on, that we talked about Toy Shirt like a couple minutes ago. Um, do you think that we could move Betcher to a more of a super sub role rather than have him start as the 11 to Klaus? As a
Yeah, I
secondary
mean,
striker, and have Toy Shirt play that role.
yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, one of those three guys is going to have to go to the bench, either Klaus, Becker, or Toy Shirt. And out of those three, I'm going to assume it's going to be Becker,
Hmm.
um, which because Hartle's going to stay at Cam, he's not going
Yeah.
anywhere. Lubin's going to stay at that central midfielder role, so it's hard to see where he kind of fits in without benching either Klaus or Becker.
Hmm.
And I think Becker fits in that super sub role because he plays with a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Um, plays with we kind of saw a little bit too. I felt like he used like all of his stamina at the start of the game. Um, and I feel like after halftime, he was completely gassed a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think him as a super sub actually works pretty well with his play style. And then Toy Shirt, in my opinion, one, because we spent so much on him, that we have to at least try to get that investment out of him. And I think he's been good when he's played.
Yeah.
He's incredibly talented, and I think he can play that kind of setup role to Klaus. I think one of the interesting things too going forward is, like I mentioned earlier with Klaus, his skill set kind of where he's really great on the ball, and maybe potentially being a better deep line forward than like a pure goal scoring striker. Well, that's kind of what they brought in Toy Shirt to do in the role they envisioned him playing with the club. So I don't know. You obviously can't have two players playing that same role and no striker. So I think there's an argument to be made that maybe Toy Shirt is actually better. He's a better fit with Becker playing striker. I mean, we saw that
Mm,
kind of at the end of last
yeah.
year where they
Yeah.
actually linked up very well and were very productive together.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's definitely a possibility, but I do think they are going to try at
Yeah.
least to have Klaus and Toy Shirt as the duo moving forward. And if it doesn't work out, we could see Becker replacing Klaus, or we can see Klaus moving back or playing like a deep line forward role.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
there's still a lot of experimenting when you have a new manager like this. There's going to be so much experimenting early on, and I think we're going to see so many different lineups and players moving around and not playing their usual roles and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Where Melbourne's just trying to find where every player fits in best. And I think Toy Shirt's going to be one of those main guys who we see try and fit into the squad.
Yeah. Would you want to move on to predictions now?
Yeah, let's move on to our predictions. So,
Yeah, we do play San Diego next or this Saturday.
mhm.
San Diego's coming off of that 2-0 win versus LA Galaxy, the reigning champs. It was very surprising. No one saw that coming, of course. I think
Mhm.
Anders Dreyer had both goals for them. And Chucky Lozano, one of the best Mexican players in their history, I think assisted the first goal. So this is a squad that we actually should be worried about. I know
Mhm.
earlier in the season I was saying that San Diego was not a good squad at all. They completely proved me wrong. I admit that, and yeah, I really do think that the San Diego squad is actually something that we need to be worried about. But do you want to talk about what you think will happen in this game?
Yeah, so I like you said, San Diego's coming off of a huge win against LA Galaxy, um, and going on the road to San Diego. Your city's an infamously bad team when they go on the road, so it's not necessarily like a recipe for success. And it's something that you definitely have to be worried about. I think it's going to be the first ever home game for San Diego, so it's going to be an even harder environment than usual, even more hostile, I guess, if you want to use that word. Um, and San Diego actually played very well against LA Galaxy. They dominated almost every statistic out there,
Yeah.
which is again very surprising because you just saw that they won, and it's like, okay, well, maybe they kind of got lucky, but No, they fully deserved and just completely outplayed LA Galaxy. So it's going to be very tough, I feel like, going on the road to San Diego, especially early on where this team doesn't really, I don't want to say they don't have an identity yet, but they have multiple areas where there's a lot of question marks. We haven't been able to score yet. We don't know what the lineup's going to be. Um, it's going to be very tough. I feel like last week I predicted City to win 2-1 against Colorado. That was not correct. So I am 0-1 when it comes to my predictions, but I'm going to be a little bit pessimistic here, and I'm actually going to go with a 2-1 win for San Diego. So I'm going to say City loses this one
Oh,
on the road.
interesting. I also predicted a 2-1 win
Yeah.
last week, and that of course didn't happen. But since it is our first ever, like prediction for that we're do our second ever prediction on this channel for St. Louis City, I think that I'm gonna go on a more higher note here. I think that we will figure our attack out. Our defense, of course, we know is strong. Um, I think that our attack will click this game and we'll finish 1-0 win at San Diego, I think. Um, but yeah, also as a bonus, I think I'll go with a Marcel Hartel goal.
Interesting.
Just to toss that in there. But I'll go with the 1-0 1-0 win. This could go horribly wrong actually, but um, yeah, I'll just go with the 1-0 win at San Diego. We need these points.
We do. We do need to win this game.
Like, I think our schedule after this is horrid. So if we
Mm-hmm.
win at San Diego, this will be good. Good momentum to go on to I think LA Galaxy and then Seattle.
Yeah, and then Seattle.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Seattle.
both at home though.
It's also interesting to me that just something I wanted to just talk about is like I think I looked at it and I think out of our first 7 games, I think we only have 3 home games. So it's kind of like interesting. We're
Mm-hmm.
playing the majority of our games are away. So
Mm-hmm.
we are playing away at LA Galaxy. We are playing away at San Diego, and then we have the Seattle game, and then we go straight back
Mm-hmm.
on the road until Columbus, I think. So, um, we need this win. But yeah, I don't really know. Yeah,
Is the game against LA not a home game?
no,
Was.
because yeah,
You're right. It's
yeah,
not. Okay. Wow.
because
That's a lot
both
tougher.
of us will be at the Seattle game. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, let's just hope that we can beat San Diego here. We need this win. We can't
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
cannot start another season off bad like we did last year.
Yeah. I mean, they're gonna have to get some points somewhere during this stretch. They cannot start off on the back foot here.
Yeah.
And I think this is potentially a great opportunity to do it here against San Diego. It's going to be a really good test. Our first road game going to be against a very unknown team.
Hmm.
So we'll see how that pans out. I think it's going to be very telling of what to expect in the future based on how this match goes. So yeah, I'm excited for this weekend. I'm praying. I'm hoping for the best from City. Hopefully we can score this time. Um, but yeah, I think that's about going to do it. I think that's about everything we wanted to cover here from this first match week.
All right.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, we want to thank you guys for listening here. If there's anything you want us to see in the future, let us know. But I think that's going to conclude it here.
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.